all people, and we understand how hurting this war is for many of us, including the leadership of our country. And this might not be as clear for our partner side because they're not in this situation.
US President Donald Trump has paused military aid to Ukraine, marking a dramatic shift in US policy. If the suspension holds long term, the effect on the battlefield could be dramatic. The United States is by far the largest supplier of military aid to Ukraine, though when total aid, including humanitarian assistance, is factored in, Europe spends marginally more. The decision comes after a disastrous meeting between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy last week, where the two leaders had been supposed to sign a minerals deal, which would have opened up Ukraine's natural resources to American investors. Now, before the news of the military aid pause was announced, I spoke to Pavlo Verkhniatskyi, managing director at COSA Solutions, a consulting firm focused on technological development and founded shortly after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Pavlo, welcome to the show. Now, the past few days have been extraordinary. What's your gut feeling? Can this minerals deal be revived?
Hello. Yes, I do believe that this deal can be revived since I believe that both the US side and Ukrainian side are interested in signing it. There has been a lot of speculation around, the pressure around this deal, that the Ukrainian side was pressured to actually sign it, even though there were some terms that weren't as comfortable for Kyiv as it could be. However, from what I see in the text of this term sheet, let's not forget that it's a term sheet, not an agreement yet. It's quite broad, but at the same time, it clearly outlines both interests, including the Ukrainian interest. So yes, I do believe that there is a good chance for actually signing it.
What would the deal have meant for the Ukrainian economy in concrete terms?
Well, as far as I can say, it will give a good chance to actually finally start developing industries and sectors that have not been developed for quite a long while. Moreover, this agreement might lead to Ukraine becoming a truly valuable partner for not just the United States, but Europe as well, since things are very interconnected here, and the critical raw material sector is something that is surprisingly critical both for Europe and the US, and their dependency on China is clearly dangerous to a certain extent, depending on where the geopolitical trends lead us. And Ukraine might truly become a partner that everyone would be interested to work with. So basically, this agreement might once again lead to developing sectors that have been on hold for quite a long while. Licenses were kept, but deposits were not developed, and this probably finally gives a chance for these sectors to thrive for a reason. Obviously, there's a lot of geopolitics behind this, but in reality, this will probably lead to underdeveloped industries to finally thrive.
Okay, we want to talk about the geopolitics of this a little later, but at stake here are natural resources with an estimated potential value of about $12 trillion. What would this have meant for Ukraine's private sector? How ready are companies in the country to exploit these deposits?
I would be careful with the estimations, first of all. So I don't think that anyone actually knows how big these deposits are. And the trillions of dollars highlighted several times in the media might not be as true, because in many cases, the critical raw materials industry isn't always a very profitable one. But it's critical for a different reason, because those materials are used in, for example, the defense sector. And certain arms systems simply cannot be produced without them. So it's the criticality that it doesn't come from the price. So I'd be careful with the pricing, with the estimation. Sorry. But as to companies that could be interested in developing these fields, I do believe there are firms that would understand this criticality and gladly dive into Ukraine and start developing these resources. Moreover, the agreement doesn't touch upon only the critical raw materials sector. It touches upon other strategic sectors such as ports, for example, so infrastructure assets, and oil and gas deposits. And this is where different players from around the world could be interested in. But obviously, the U.S. players might be the first to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if this estimate is a little overblown, I am wondering how this is all going to work in the long term. What period of time are we talking when it comes to making dividends on these investments?
This is a very good question, and it clearly depends on the exact sector and exact resource. For example, in the titanium industry, this could start, giving returns faster, since we have in Ukraine we had quite a strong industry, which probably faced a certain downfall with the Russian invasion, and we still have quite a good potential in this subsector, so to say. So some returns could come quicker in titanium. We've got enterprises, we've got technologies, and we have deposits. So it's not just raw materials. This can work around processing this resource, which is very much needed by the Western industries, including the defense industry. And again, we understand the dependency of our partners on titanium coming from, for example, Russia. So this dependency could be potentially cut off, so to say, but to a certain extent. In other areas, oil and gas obviously gives quicker returns. Port infrastructure, if it works properly, I believe that this can also be a beneficial area, especially given the fact that the Russians are still occupying part of the Ukrainian territories, and including ports that are in the Sea of Azov. So we've got only the Odessa region ready for ports infrastructure development, and with the increase of trade routes and trade volumes, this can become an area to explore. I think this is why it was actually put into this agreement. So this is a quicker area for returns.
You mentioned that some of these deposits are in the territories currently occupied by Russia. How would American investment work in this context?
Well, ideally, we would think that part of the deal would be regaining the territories. But if we talk seriously, there's still enough of them left on the non-occupied territories. So frankly speaking, we don't know what will be happening to the currently temporarily occupied territories with all those deposits in place. But I think they might be part of the deal in case they are regained at some point in time. We do hope that no one's actually making a deal with the Russians in this regard. So as far as I understand, as far as we can see from the negotiations process, anything that Ukraine would be exploring in future in its territory would be part of the deal, licensed and explored in the future. would be a part of the deal. So if we regain the territories, they would be part of the resources there would be part of the deal.
But just to clarify, the current term of the text does not explicitly mention what would be done with the deposits in these occupied territories.
No, there's not a single word about specific territory in question. Moreover, as I mentioned, it's still a term sheet, so the actual agreement is yet to be developed. And this is where I think would be very important to attract professional organizations from civil society, professional NGOs that are looking into this area, so that the state actors who are developing the actual agreement would use data, would use research, and even a scientific approach to developing this document. Since without data, without certain ground, this might become quite, if not empty, but not very precise piece of paper. So I would truly see professional organizations working in the fields of critical raw materials, infrastructure development, and oil and gas. They would be a part of this development of the document, and contribute their knowledge and their existing data to the document.
After what happened in the White House on Friday, how confident are you that this next step will ever happen?
Well, there's no such thing as 100% confidence these days in anything, and things can change overnight. However, I still have hope that this deal would be signed. And as I said, everybody's interested. Moreover, it looks like, this kind of emotional, to a certain extent, emotional case might be straightened to a certain extent, and could be calmed down through additional negotiations, through people being involved in developing the further agreement, taking part in the negotiation process itself. So that there is more substance to the deal itself, but not the surrounding emotional context, so to say. Since whenever there is a war, and it's a bloody war, it's a tragic war, like any war actually, there is a lot of emotion around it. That's quite obvious. But still, we all need to look into how to get out of this situation and getting out of it as partners. So I don't think we have much of choices, both sides. I mean, both Ukraine and the United States, and not to overcome the situation in a with a cold head, so to say, and come to a reasonable solution. So I believe that at least in this case, diplomacy can still work out things, and we can see the support of the European side. So I think we wouldn't even need these kind of mediators here. So I think it will be settled down between Ukraine and the United States with the substance around this deal itself.
What is a cool-headed approach for Ukraine, given the personalities you are dealing with in the White House?
Well, there is always there should be a strategy in most of the large-scale political cases. There should be a strategy. So if you stick to the strategy, there's no place for unnecessary emotion, unnecessary steps. So whenever you and I'm talking about our side in particular right now. So whenever you follow a strategy that considers the other side, the partner side, so to say, style, you would probably have different ways of working in public and in person, and filling the deals, as I already said, with substantial grounds for cooperation. So again, sticking to a certain strategy, if you choose it, you follow it. We all understand we're all people, and we understand how hurting this war is for many of us, including the leadership of our country. And this might not be as clear for our partner side because they're not in this situation. So we clearly need to understand that we shouldn't appeal to the emotional side on their end, but rather appeal to concrete steps, concrete deals, where both sides would benefit from it. And once again, I'm not sure that the Ukrainian side is currently working from a stronger position. Obviously, the armed forces are holding ground and they're defending the country. And it's very, very clear that the industry is doing whatever it can to support the soldiers with the weapons. However, we need to realistically look at what the country in general can provide to survive this war. And it's not only about survival. It's not only about holding up for another period of time. It's about preserving the nation, preserving the economic potential, technological potential, but most importantly, preserving the lives of the Ukrainians and everybody living in this country, so that the country can develop further. For that, it seems like there could be a solution offered by our partners. At least there is an attempt to provide this solution, as far as we can see. And this fund deal is a part of it. It's just a part of this bigger picture. And I believe that we do need to finalize this fund deal quite quickly. We do need to step forward and let our partners complete this step, this phase of the bigger picture, hopefully leading to some kind of solution in the war. Because we also understand that there are talks and some hopefully pressure towards the Russian side. We don't know exactly, of course, but there is this kind of understanding right now.
So you mentioned this fund. So this is a plan that would see revenue from Ukraine's natural resources be put into a pot, basically. Who would have control of that fund? How would it work?
Well, from the text, it looks like the American side would have a fund. But as we can say here, it is quite a costly manager, which would otherwise cost us quite a big amount of money. But without kidding, as far as we can understand, the US side, by contributing into the management of this fund and contributing into the development of the Ukrainian resources, also needs certain control that over the fact that these resources are not do not appear in the hands of any kind of U.S. adversaries. So they want to be sure that these resources would be working for the free world, so to say. Well, America first, we understand that, but to a certain extent, that is also quite positive for the rest of the free world. So in simple words, I believe that the US side intentionally made this deal in a way that they would make sure that this mechanism works properly, that they have the word about how this reinvestment works, who's involved, who benefits. But in the end, it is Ukraine that benefits from developing its critical sectors. You see, but they just need to keep their hands on the leverages, probably mitigating the risk of inappropriate approach to spending these, or developing resources, attracting investment from potentially adversary sides. So they might, it's a long-term thing. Doesn't happen overnight. So they want to make sure that whoever comes to power in Ukraine later doesn't sell off these deposits, doesn't give licenses to someone whom the United States might see as an adversary. So in general, as a Ukrainian citizen, I think that is quite positive at this point in time. We wouldn't think that something wrong might happen now to these deposits and to these assets, but we don't know what might happen later. Ukraine has not been the most stable country politically for 34 years, right? So we can understand that this might be a concern for the United States.
Yeah, but is it still clear who the United States actually views as an adversary?
Well, I think the United States clearly outlines China as a potential adversary in their strategy, in their military doctrine, as far as I can understand from the public sources. And as to Russia, I believe that this so-called axis of the new axis of evil, so to say, Russia, Iran, North Korea, is obviously seen as a potential adversary, but the US has chosen a path right now to somehow maybe kind of cut Russia off the Chinese influence, which could be a good attempt, but not necessarily successful. But in general terms, I do believe that Russia is also seen as an adversary by the United States. At least that has been the case for within all of the years of this bloody war, and that was clearly outlined by the United States. Obviously, with the change of the administration, one might think that things have changed, but I don't think that is the case from a strategic point of view. Situationally, this might seem so, but I don't think that is that strategically something has significantly changed in this perspective.
Okay, if we look at China then, still unambiguously an adversary of the US, would this deal have reduced reliance in any meaningful way on China for rare earths?
Well, China hasn't been here in the rare earths, so I don't think that this will in any way influence their presence here right now. So they have some businesses here, they have investment in Ukraine, and they've been a partner to Ukraine for quite a long while. We obviously understand that in case no one came to develop these resources, China would be one of the options. I believe so. However, in this particular configuration that we have now, with the West's attempt to get rid of the dependence on Chinese rare earths, since China has been blocking exports of these resources to the United States, I think that Ukraine could take a certain niche in the global markets of these minerals, and even compete with China to a certain extent in the global markets. But let's look at this realistically, mostly working with the European and American sides on this in this aspect.
Okay, let's look at Europe. It needs to come up with the funds to provide Ukraine with more military support. Is there any sense that perhaps Europe could take over the role the United States had wanted to play on natural resources, that such an investment could help fund Ukraine's security in the longer term?
Do you mean that if the United States doesn't sign it?
Yes, if this deal is dead, could Europe replace the United States in this role?
You know, I see no reason for this not happening in case, again, the deal is dead with the U.S. I'm more than sure that European countries are as interested. Moreover, they have the same dependency on Russia and China. You can see it from trade data that is easy to analyze in the current information flows conditions. So they're definitely interested, and they could be they could play a certain role here for sure, in case that is dead with the U.S. Because the U.S. was basically first to kind of put the flag on this topic.
Okay, we will be keeping track of this story in the coming weeks. Pavlo Verkhniatskyi, Managing Director at COSA Solutions, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you.